Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ray. I am a detransition male, and today we are going to be talking about AGP and whether or not transitioning can be a fetish. I'm going to be reacting to this trans content creator. Her name is Icky, I think is her name that she goes by in the internet world. She is the girlfriend of Fenster, who previously was just a cross dressing Twitch streamer, femboy, but now Fenster has come out as trans, genderqueer, something like this, gender fluid. Icky recently came out with a video about whether or not transitioning can be a fetish. So, as a resident AGP myself, I have some thoughts on this because AGP, aka fetish, was like the origin of why I transitioned. So, I definitely think that um, this is more common than people realize. So I'm going to break it down and yeah, just react, and then I'm going to dive into some actual scientific research to sort of prove my point about why this person is totally wrong and gets the science and this sort of phenomenology incorrect. So let's get into it.
Happy New Year. Is it recording? This isn't my camera. Happy New Year. It's a new year and I'm in the same place. The new house is not ready. Oh well, I'm happy. I'm fine. I got a new haircut. Can't really tell because it's dark, but I have layers. My hair has layers now. Very cool. What are we talking about today? I am going to talk about, is being trans a fetish?
Yeah. In some cases, yes. Many cases, yes. Not all cases, but in many cases, yes. That's the answer.
The obvious answer is no. But I want to talk
Is it so obvious? I don't think so.
about how this is a thing that gets brought up tons. Like when you start your journey into transitioning, I think at some point you kind of, is this all it is? And you kind of write it off.
Just the fact that it comes up so often and she admits that it comes up so often is like part and parcel of the evidence for autogynephilia. The mere fact that this is such a common question amongst trans women is like, is it just a fetish? Like, the fact that that is a common question is like proof positive that the fetish is the underlying origin of like the fetish.
And then you realize, if you get that far, I'm just trans. What did any of that mean?
So being just trans is not incompatible with the question of whether transitioning can be a fetish, because AGP is a theory of the origin of the trans identity. So you can have a trans identity, you can have this dysphoria, but the AGP, the fetish, the autogynephilia can be the causal origin for the development of that identity. So it's not like saying like, oh, like later on I have this trans identity, therefore, it can't possibly be a fetish. Well, the fetish, the theory of AGP explains where that identity comes from. It has its roots in the erotic.
What I don't know. What did any of that mean? Well, I get a lot of messages from people because I am the trans fairy godmother. Apparently, I get messages all the time of people asking me, how do I know if I'm trans or if it's just something that I'm into like that? Ugh.
So she admits that she gets message like this all the time. Well, that is exactly what the theory of autogynephilia predicts, is that most people, when they're starting their transition, the non-homosexual, aka the trans women who are not exclusively attracted to men and have always been exclusively attracted to men from a young age, they are going to have this question of, is it just a fetish? Because that is the origin of the phenomenon. That's where it has its roots, is in the erotic.
It's a hard subject, but I think you just know. And I think
No, you don't just know. You don't just know. Like it's more complicated than that, because the development of a trans identity is something that it evolves, it escalates, it sort of elaborates itself, particularly as you get plugged into these online trans communities and you get exposed to gender identity ideology, which says that, oh, actually it's not just a fetish, you just have this inner gender identity. And that's a true explanation of what's going on, which is a ideological explanation rather than the more scientific explanation of autogynephilia, which has scientific research, which I'm going to get into later.
Think that it's easy to get confused. So, to break it down, before you're on estrogen, your body is usually ruled by testosterone. And testosterone brains, when they get excited, it's kind of
The other word for testosterone brains is male brains. You can say it. Just say male brains.
all-encompassing excitement. So, the idea of viewing yourself in the correct gender in a sexual or non-sexual situation in the very early stages can be exciting. And your testosterone brain can go, exciting? I think you mean exciting. And you know,
She's basically saying that when you think about yourself as a woman, you get a quote unquote euphoria boner, which is and often this first manifests when you are doing cross dressing. So whether you have like arousal via cross dressing is a very common experience with AGP. That is one of the first manifestations. Or you have a thought of yourself as a woman, and in some ways, sometimes it's like anatomical. So you might imagine yourself with a vagina, and like that, gets you hard. It has some sort of arousal component.
so it can be very easy to get confused. I think that any cis woman who pictures themselves in a sexual setting is going to get turned on. That's kind of how it goes. But trans women are kind of subjected to a lot more rigorous standards. If we picture ourselves pre-transition in our actual bodies, female, having sex, that's a fetish. That's disgusting. That I don't know. For some reason, that's not allowed. You cannot picture yourself as you are meant to be, enjoying yourself. Sure, but that can lead to a lot of confusing, weird feelings. I think specifically with being trans, it being a fetish right now in society is more widely accepted than it being real. If you tell someone,
That's not true, because the theory of autogynephilia is widely considered to be pseudoscientific, transphobic, debunked. Like Michael Bailey, the scientific researcher who has studied autogynephilia, almost that they like trans activists try to get him fired from his job for even exploring this question. So no, it's not more accepted. The trans identity is much more accepted, which is obviously evidenced by the fact that like she is so uncomfortable talking about the possibility of fetish being the origin of trans identity compared to her identity as just being a trans woman, which is like much more socially acceptable in our society.
I like to dress up because it gets me off. Okay, whatever, you do you. I like to dress up because
No, it's not whatever, you do you. That is a highly stigmatized thing.
My gender identity is wrong, and internally I am a woman and I need to live like this. Ew, that's
What world are you living in? Like, you have like every progressive politician at the highest levels, every corporate HR seminar, every like it's all about gender identity this and go trans women are brave, gender identity, like Dylan Mulvaney's such a brave woman of the year. Like that whole ideology is like very much praised by the progressive left at the highest echelons of our society, with like the president of the United States like valorizing identity. You don't hear like Joe Biden talking about like AGP fetishists in like a positive light. No, it's not talked about. You don't go into work and talk about your fetish, but you can go into work and talk about your gender identity. You can even have like a seminar or HR training, diversity training at work about about gender identity. You don't have diversity trainings at work about like, how you have your euphoria boners when you put on like panties or whatever. Like, so no, there is differences here.
It's gross. Stop doing that. That just seems to be the thing, and I'm not really sure why. Why I am. It's because people are dumb. Once you've actually transitioned and you're happy and you look how you want to look and you're comfortable with your body, that general sense of excitement goes away. You
Okay, so this is interesting because earlier she was saying that, well, cis women experience this, they experience this excitement. But now she's saying that when you're trans and you're living just your full on trans life as a woman, you don't have the excitement. The libido and the arousal goes away. Well, you can't have it both ways. Either you're experiencing normal female sexuality because they're saying like, oh, prior to hormones and stuff, which by the way, the hormones kills the libido. That's why you don't experience arousal anymore because you're on hormones that has killed your libido. But they're saying that, oh, prior to taking hormones, when you're have the quote unquote testosterone brain, you're just experiencing normal female sexuality because, cis women, females, they also experience this when they're having sexual thoughts that they get aroused at the thought of themselves, having sex in a female body, which also I can contest that data as well. It's not necessarily true. That's like oversimplification, but now like when you're living your full trans life post HRT, you're no longer experiencing that sexuality. So which is it? Is it the arousal that's normal? Because I thought you're supposed to have female sexuality. So you're saying that like after HRT, after transition, you don't experience the arousal, and but like presumably running on estrogen, your sexuality is like more aligned with the female sexuality. So, and another thing is like for the AGPs, it's like it's not just when you're it's not just when you're having sex or you're preparing for sex or you're on a date. It's like sort of in more mundane situations. It's like, the AGP can be like painting their nails or whatever and get like arousal from that, a very mundane act. Cis women do not get arousal from painting their nails or putting on makeup. Whereas like it's very common for AGPs to experience arousal in these very mundane acts. Whereas the female, they experience that arousal in the context of the preparation for the sexual activity with another person. They're getting ready for a date, they're putting on their lingerie, they're thinking about the sexy times. Whereas like the AGP arousal is more internally oriented. It's not about other people. Like it's sort of about just you and your own auto sexuality. It is auto. It is about the self. It is internally oriented in regards to mundane activities that typically don't turn on, like regular females. Like a regular female is not going to just like be getting ready for work and like putting on some like pantyhose and like getting like aroused. Whereas like that is like a common AGP thing. um but she's trying to say like, well, females experience that sort of stuff too, so that's not like unique to the testosterone brain. That's just that's just that's just normal for females. It's just like the testosterone makes it more excessive or something. Well, no, these are categorically different things. And furthermore, I think the the rest of the video is sort of like, um not going to be much more helpful. But I want to sort of explain something here because let me look at this here. So hold on. Okay. So this is Ray Blanchard, Archives of Sexual Behavior, 1985, Typology of Male to Female Transsexualism. This study tested a prediction derived from the hypothesis that asexual and bisexual transsexualism are actually subtypes of heterosexual transsexualism. Two questionnaire scales measuring erotic attraction to males and females were administered to 163 male to female transsexuals. A cluster analysis of their scores divided the subjects into four groups: heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, and asexual. Fisher exact tests were used to compare the frequency with which subjects in the four clusters reported a history of erotic arousal in association with cross dressing. As predicted, there were no differences among the asexual, bisexual, and heterosexual transsexuals, and all three groups included a much higher proportion of fetishistic cases than the homosexual group. These findings support the view that male transsexuals may be divided into two basic types: heterosexual and homosexual. Okay, so what Blanchard is saying here is that if you are exclusively attracted to men as a male, and or if you're a transsexual, like a male to female transsexual, and you're exclusively attracted um, to males, you're have an androphilia, and that's sort of like um, you know, which is different than bisexuality, asexuality, heterosexuality. Like you're going to have a different cluster of erotic fetishistic desire. So let's actually look at the data here. So here we have a modified androphilia score. So this sort of will allow you to cluster, how attracted you are to the male body. So here down here we have the homosexuals who are very much attracted to males. And you have the modified gynephilia and the modified androphilia. So as you can see, the homosexuals are very much attracted to the male body and not at all attracted to the female body, whereas the heterosexuals are not at all attracted to the male body and very much attracted to the female body. And like the bisexuals are, kind of have both, and the asexuals have neither. Okay, so now we have these two groups of people. You have the homosexuals, and then you have the asexuals, the heterosexuals, and the bisexuals. Now let's look at this thing here. Number of subjects in each cluster acknowledging a history of cross-gender fetishism. So the question is, ever felt sexually aroused while cross-dressing? Yes. 14 heterosexual, 9 asexual, 23 bisexual, and 15 homosexual. Whereas no, only 2 heterosexuals said no, only 3 said no in the asexual, 12 no in bisexual, and 85 said no in homosexual. So you can see here in this graph that the percentage of subjects in each of the 4 clusters reporting a history of cross-gender fetishism. In the heterosexual group, you have like 90% of heterosexual male to female transsexuals, aka the male to female transsexuals who are attracted to women, aka what we would now consider to be transbians, quote unquote lesbians, aka the trans women who are attracted to women. They're heterosexual with respect to the birth sex. The asexuals, the bisexuals, and then the homosexuals. Like this is a clear difference. This is just like a qualitative sharp difference. So the hypothesis is that there's two types. Like these types cluster together insofar as it's more likely to have a history of fetishistic cross-dressing. Whereas if you're a homosexual, you're not going to have this history of fetishistic cross-dressing. So when Icky, this trans woman in the video, when she was saying that, oh, this is just something that's like common for testosterone brain. Oh, if you have testosterone brain, you're going to experience this fetishistic arousal. You're going to have this question. It's just very common. Well, no, that is not the case. Like it is much, 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 much more common in the heterosexual, bisexual, and asexual groups of male to female transsexuals than it is in the homosexual male to female transsexuals. The like homosexual transsexuals don't ask these sorts of questions about like, is it just a fetish? Whereas the question, is it just a fetish, that is unique to the asexual, bisexual, and heterosexual male to female transsexual. So you can't just say that, oh, that this is just like a product of testosterone brain, because clearly the homosexual transsexuals, they have testosterone brains pre HRT. They have identity as a woman, but their experience in regards to cross dressing is much more aligned with the typical female experience. Like the homosexual brain in regards to their experience of arousal with femininity is much closer to the female brain than it is the heterosexual, bisexual, or asexual male brain. So this whole thing about like, oh well, this is just like regular cis woman sexuality, but like once you transition, like it's different. Like no, this is a phenomenon. This like question of like whether transition it is like a fetish, like that question only gets asked by the heterosexual, bisexual, and an asexual. It doesn't get asked by the homosexuals. That's why there's a difference. That's why there's two types. So that's the whole theory of autogynephilia. That's the whole theory behind two type typology. So her saying that like, oh well, once you have this identity, we're just trans women, we're just women, it's not a fetish, like that theory doesn't explain, like her answer does not explain why there's this difference between the two types. But the theory of autogynephilia much better explains the actual data. It explains why you don't have the homosexual type asking this question of, is it just a fetish? Um, so, so yeah, that's what I wanted to say in this video is that her answer just doesn't really explain the data. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.